when something's never been done before, you're more likely to be seen as delusional because like what people think, what makes you the person that can make this happen? Hey everyone, welcome back to the Growing Together podcast with me, Sonny Vasquez.
And me, Cesar Santos.
A podcast where we talk about everything under the sun related to growth and becoming the very best version of yourself. We're back with another episode. We keep skipping weeks, unfortunately, just because, I don't know, I feel we've just kind of been tired.
That, but then also, we want to make sure that these podcasts are good, you know? Like, I always want, every time I go into a podcast and record this with you, I'm always wanting to make sure that I'm at my best. And
sometimes we're just not feeling like... It becomes like where if you can't give it your all, you just don't want to give it anything.
Yeah.
So, But, you know, it's crazy.
I think I know exactly what you're about to say.
Cesar,
this is why we have a drink for that specific reason, right? So
I mean, wait, what's your thing?
It's episode number 50.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's episode number 50. I was more just drinking this because I wanted
I thought that's why you got it.
No, I was it's either coffee or this. I wanted a beverage, so.
I was like, oh, wait, she got it because it's episode 50. It's a big number, you know?
Yeah.
I can't believe
it's crazy to think that Cesar and I have made it through 50 episodes. So really it can only go up from here, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's insane that we've published over 50 podcasts. It's just insane how we've kind of transformed as we've created these episodes
and
too.
We've shifted. Like if you look at our first podcast to now, it's not too much different, but we're in a completely different place than we were when we started. You know, this whole podcast is about growth, and I think when I look back on episodes, I can see the growth that we've gone through. You know, like we now live 2,000 miles from where we were when we started the podcast. Cesar has a great job. I have a great job, and we get to do this as a part of like our passions. And you know, I think, I mean, obviously we still have miles and miles to go, but I think we're in like a better place. It sounds like we're dead, but I just think whenever someone says we're in a better place, I think of death. But I think it's just interesting. So it is crazy. And I remember the reason I think 50 is so significant too is I remember when we had, I am blanking on his name. I just know his on Instagram. It's Digital Podcaster.
Yeah, when we had
Dylan. And he was talking about how like, basically, I think if you make it through like the first 50, you know, like you're on your way to, it's always like harder to get it through that first, you know, year or two because like I think in some sense you want to give up, and especially if you're not getting like what you envisioned and you're not setting like realistic goals for yourself. But yeah, it's crazy that way. Here at 50 episodes, and our episode topic today has to do with kind of aligns with this being the 50th episode, and also just kind of following your passions. And so kind of the way I titled it is like if you're reading the episode title, it's called On the Bright Side of Delusion. So I wanted to talk about the concept of being like delusional, and how it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think being delusional gets a really bad rep. There are some cases where being delusional is not good for you. It's not going to help you in your life. But I think there are also some cases where being delusional can only help you move forward. So what are you thinking when I say that?
First off, I do want to start off by saying, what is delusional? What is the definition of delusion or delusional? Because I just want to make sure that we're both talking about the same exact thing.
So being delusional is a false belief or judgment about like your reality. So like you might see things as they really aren't, or like, you know, I think it also has to do a lot of like with perception. So you might have like this goal or ambition, and from my view lens, from my perspective, it seems totally delusional. But at the same time, I think the reason why I think it's so interesting to talk about this, I think that what I might see as delusional is perfectly realistic to you because you may have all the facts that I don't. You know what I mean?
See.
So like it all has delusion all has to do with what you see as your reality.
Okay.
and like how unrelated it is to your actual reality.
Okay. So just based on that, I do think that there are like negative aspects. There can be negative things if someone is delusional about, you know. The first thing that comes to my mind is like the loss of someone, and then
I don't know if that's delusion.
well, then they create this like false narrative that they're still alive, you know, or that they're still out there looking. They're like, let's say they went missing, and it was
So I do want to be very careful when
Yeah.
we talk about delusion
Yeah.
in like a positive way, because there is such thing as like delusional disorders and
Yeah.
has a lot to do with your mental health. So I'm not preaching like go out there, be delusional,
Yeah.
everyone. But I do think that there, like with everything in life, there's good and bad. I think so, at least with most things. There's a good side to it and there's a bad side. And like so I do want to highlight that good side of delusion, and like so in some cases like having like such a reality that's just not real can harm you, especially like if it's in regards to, I don't know, I can't really think of a good example, but like in the example you're sharing where like you're kind of, I think that's a like a kind of a symptom of grief at that point.
Yeah.
It's like not wanting to accept that that person's gone, and that can like maybe hurt how you move forward and heal, you know, because then you might not be healing.
Exactly. The first example that came to my mind was, have you ever seen Stranger Things season 1?
Oh yeah. Well, I haven't seen season 1. I've only seen season 4.
Well, spoiler alert. You've only seen season 4.
I got such shit from Spencer about that. He was like, "You've only watched season 4," and I was like, "Yeah, but honestly, I really enjoyed season 4."
Long story short, the mom ends up like the government tells them that, oh yeah, your kid's dead, and she's like, no, he's alive, and everyone's like calling her delusional and crazy because she's looking for her dead kid.
But here's the thing about that.
And he ends up being alive.
But that's the thing.
Exactly.
If there's a sense, I think so. I think often with like being called delusional, there's like a sense where, like, at what point is it delusional to hold out hope for something?
Mm-hmm.
And like that's the thing. In that, like that example in that TV show, they call it delusional because like, oh, there's just no way your kid's alive. They're telling you your kids are alive, so you have to kind of believe it. And you see it, honestly, you see this in true crime too, unfortunately, like, especially if someone goes missing and like their body's never found, or, you know, in those cases, like, who are you to tell like someone's like loved ones that they can't hold out hope that maybe they're okay or maybe they're still alive? Because it's hard, you know. So I think it's hard to find that point in life where like maybe you stop holding out onto like the hope that you have, because you don't want to be the person to tell someone that either. Like you're like, you know, that you're, I don't even know how to phrase it, you know.
It's that specific like, you know, whether it's like a symptom or something that happened because of a tragic event in someone's life, that's a different form of you know, delusion. I think what we're talking about here, what you're going to get to in this podcast, is something totally different.
No, I mean, I think it all aligns together, but like, I don't know, it's all perspective, you know. Like when I, like, for instance, when I was in high school, I had dreams of going to school in California. And like I was almost like delusional in the sense that like I was like telling myself, that's the only place I belong. I'm gonna go. And I say it's delusional because I wasn't considering some key things I had to consider. My SAT scores, which were not good. Like, I applied to these schools, but I don't think at any point I thought I would get rejected. I thought I would actually get accepted, but my SAT scores weren't great. Just didn't really have everything you needed to pad like a college like application to a school like USC or like UCLA, which is where I wanted to go. So I think I was holding out hope, and I had already gotten like rejected from one California school, and that was USC. So I was really holding out to hope on UCLA. Like, Then like when I got rejected from UCLA, I was like, well, there's still a chance, you know. Like you kind of think that like you'll find a way to get there, and not say like. There probably, if I would have been more persistent, there probably was a way to get to California. Maybe it's not the schools I wanted to go, but granted, now I'm really glad I didn't, because it would have been expensive. I would have been in even more debt than I am right now. So Yeah, but I was delusional in that sense to think that, like, given the situation and all the details and everything you need to get into those schools, it wasn't going to happen, no matter how hard I wanted it, because I couldn't take back the past 4 years of high school.
Yeah.
You know, like, or the fact that I hadn't really put a lot into taking the SATs or the ACT. You can't really take that back at that moment. It's what's done is done.
You know, what you did to, you know, when you're in high school at the time, your senior year, yeah, you'd in that sense, you would really be delusional if you think you're going to get into, you know,
Ivy League or something.
an Ivy League with a low SAT score or whatever the case is. So, yeah, that's.
Or, like, not a perfect GPA, you know? So it's crazy. So I think about delusional like that. So, yeah, when you talk about delusion, it's like laying out all the facts in front of you, but still thinking that something else is going to happen. But I think in some cases, like, the kind of act of being delusional may push you further into achieving what you're looking to achieve. Because maybe in that moment, it's not possible. Yeah, it's delusional to think in this very moment, like, we're going to be millionaires. But it's not completely out of scope for the future, you know?
Yeah. No, it's not. I mean, it obviously can help you get to the next level and whatever it is that you're wanting to do in your life.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, you may hit like roadblocks.
Yeah.
And where you need to like learn new things or relearn things that you may have forgotten in the past. So that can really help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like to think too, like, delusion, like I mentioned, like, delusion, I think, like, a bad version of delusion is saying, like, I'm going to be a millionaire without changing or putting effort into anything,
It's just,
right?
Yeah.
But I could say I'm going to be a millionaire because I'm going to do this to ensure that it happens. I'm going to invest. I'm going to be more strategic with my money. There's so many things. So I think, like, yeah. But back to, like, sorry. But back to, like, perspective, too. I think it's interesting the way that, like, we'll kind of view and judge others' dreams and call them delusional. Like, have you ever, like, been told that something you wanted was delusional?
Yeah, I have in the past.
Do you know what it was?
I don't exactly remember what it was that they were telling me where, oh, you're crazy. You know, another way that someone tells you you're delusional is, oh, you're crazy, you're stupid,
like,
you're...
like, that's wild. Like, you know.
Things like that, you know. Yeah, like, it was years ago, so I don't exactly remember what it was, but I do remember being told, usually by, like, you know, like kids that you hung around with, whatever the case was, like, oh, that's stupid, you know, whatever it is.
I think sometimes that comes from when people kind of criticize what others want to do or how they live. It's more because it's not actually based in fact a lot of time, I found. It's actually based in the fact that the other person, the one that's judging what someone else wants to do or is dreaming to do, has to do with the fact that they're scared to go after what you're going after, you know? They're not willing to do what you're willing to do. And so I think it's easier for some people, like, well, that's just freaking crazy. You know, it's also crazy to think, like, you know, I think older generations, especially when electronics, like, were invented, like cell phones and, you know, cameras and stuff, they thought, like, you know, you can't go anywhere. Like, the skills you have in regards to, like, electronics or cameras aren't going to do anything for you.
Oh, yeah.
But now, like, people make careers off of social media, like...
Yeah.
So it's crazy to think that, like, actions, like, 10 years ago were seen as delusional because there was no one successful doing something that you wanted to do. But as soon as someone else does it, it's not as delusional. It might still be delusional to some people, you know. I remember my... I don't think she'll listen to this, so I'm going to mention it. I remember my sister, when I started my YouTube channel in college, she thought I was so stupid. She was just like, why are you doing that? Like, you're so dumb, and, like, you just want attention and all this kind of stuff. And granted, like, my YouTube channel never took off, but, like, it was something I wanted to do, and it wasn't necessarily because I wanted to take off. It was more, like, just something I wanted to do for me and put myself out there because I was a very shy and introverted individual. So I think maybe some people from the outside saw it as, like, she's trying to be someone, and, like, that's stupid, you know?
Yeah, in that sense, that would be, they'd they thought you were delusional by starting this channel
Yeah,
or whatever it was. Yeah. No,
Which
exactly.
is crazy,
Yeah.
like, because it's not like entirely out of the realm of
Yeah.
possibility, but it's just not, it's still not like a norm, like a social norm, I guess.
Yeah. No,
Depending on like
yeah.
what groups you like are into, like you might have more supportive people around you, so it might not be. But I think when you kind of have been around people that have judged you a lot, they do see it as like, what the heck? Or, great example, I feel like I mentioned Target on this podcast all the time, but I honestly felt like when I left Target, like, and didn't want to, like, you know, go the retail route anymore, that, like, my managers thought, like, I was just stupid. You know, that, like, I was just full of delusion and that, you know, I'd come back as soon as things didn't work out for me. And I was like, no, it's just other people can have other dreams than what I had here, which was not a great career route for me, you know? So, yeah, I just think it's interesting the way that we kind of formulate in our mind, like, what's delusional, what's not. Because I think that's different for everyone. Like, what's delusional to you might not be delusional to me.
Yeah.
You know? Or, like, for instance, great example. When we were living in Vegas, Cesar, you know, was starting his YouTube channel. I told him, like, you know, well, if you're going to do it, like, go all in, spend all your time on it. And I think some people around us maybe didn't think it was the best idea, you know, because it wasn't automatically generating income. It wasn't automatically doing the things that, like, a normal job should do for you. Whereas, like, I was like, you know, it's perfectly logical because in my head, for when you had a lot of experience on YouTube, you knew what worked, you knew what didn't, you've built channels before. So why is it so out of the realm of possibility that you could build a channel that does well? And look, now you have a monetized channel. It's still growing and, like,
it's still generating revenue too as well.
It's still generating revenue.
Yeah.
Obviously not as much as we want, but, like,
soon.
If we put more effort into it, it will. And I think at certain moments, people aren't on that same wavelength where they see the vision that you see. They can only see every reason it might go wrong or every reason it's a bad idea right now, or, you know, it's just crazy to me to think that.
Yeah, like if you tell someone that I'm going to go out west. You lived in, like, what, the 1700s, gold rush, right? I'm gonna go find gold.
Yeah.
You know, and you may or may not have struck gold. I mean, especially during, you know, the gold rush, there were so many places people were saying, oh, there's gold here, there's gold there, there's gold everywhere, you know, like state of Nevada, for example, the state I was born and raised in, it's called the Silver State. You know, what's really interesting about Nevada?
Doesn't have any silver?
There is silver, but there was more gold reserves found. So I think it was done on purpose to throw off people to, like, hey, no, it's just silver. I thought I'm not as worth as much as gold. So, yeah. It's like one of those things. It's like an idea you have, like, I'm going to go out and, you know, find gold. In this sense, and I feel like especially in the times we live in now, there's so many ways that you can generate revenue for yourself or your family. Yeah. Whether it's online, it could be some sort of affiliate marketing thing, some product that you're selling, maybe a product that you actually make and sell and get on Shark Tank. I don't know, like those are all those sorts of things that, or TikTok, for example. You know, a lot of people have made money off of, like, you know, creating a product that, like, went viral.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't give up. You should do it.
I think it's too, when you mentioned, like, the gold rush, I'm pretty sure, like, to me you seem delusional if you don't, like, take the chance. You know, because you really don't know. What's the worst thing? You don't find any gold. Like, in that scenario, like, you come home with nothing. But if you do find it, you know, like, there's always that, like, but if it does happen, like, how great would that be? So if you don't try, like, you'll never know what would have happened, what could have happened. And to me, I'm that person that'll tear at me where it's like, oh, man, what could have happened? What would have happened?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but there's quite a few benefits to delusion. And one of them is innovation and, like, creativity. It's like being a little bit delusional makes you a little bit more innovative and a little bit more creative, because I think you're trying, in my mind, I'm not exactly sure why, but, like, if I had to guess, it's because you're trying to make what you want come alive. So you kind of got to think outside the box, like, especially if you have like these, like, I wanted to say gnarly, but that's not even the right word. These kind of ginormous goals that you've set for yourself. You've got to find creative ways to work towards them or to get there and to make your life something you enjoy living.
Yeah, I know. It's funny that you mentioned that, and I immediately just remembered something. And that I remember one of the things in my life, that people have told me I was delusional about was like creating a bag company. And thing is, obviously we created it and it wasn't successful, but I do give credit to myself because I did not know how to actually create a bag in the first place. So I had to learn. Like you said, I thought outside the box, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to learn how to do it myself. And I took the time. It took me weeks, months to learn how to make something that I had no idea how it was made in the first place.
Yeah.
So I took apart bags, and there was no courses online on YouTube at the time on how to do these things. And like people thought I was delusional. Like you're dumb. Like you're not going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I figured it out. Like I figured out how to do it. And it's crazy because I still feel like I can probably make one today if I had a machine laying around.
I mean, Cesar is a great seamstress. I will tell you that. He's helped me fix dresses and he sewed or fixed me and my mom's dress when we were like getting ready for my sister's wedding with my mom's very old sewing machine. So I will say, you have those skills for a lifetime now. Yeah. So it's good. But I also think like that made me think of when you were thinking that that is that quote about is it Harrison Ford? Did he make the car?
Henry Ford.
Henry Ford. Harrison Ford. Isn't Harrison Ford something? He's an actor. Oh Jesus. I still wanted to say Harrison. Henry Ford, if you ask people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. So to create something like the car in a time when nothing like that really existed, that's like innovative and creative. But like at the time, people probably thought like he was delusional. Or like if you think like of the like inventions of like our time of like iPhones and Mac computers and like the technology and how far it's come, it's like at the very like beginning of that like creation, there was a bunch of people saying like this person's crazy. This person does not know what they're doing and like it's not gonna work out. Because we have nothing prior to compare it to. Yeah. Because it's never been done. So I think it's also like when something's never been done before, you're more likely to be seen as delusional because like what people think, what makes you the person that can make this happen?
Yeah.
And like I give credit to people who can like kind of persevere through that scrutiny of like you'll never make it happen, what makes you so special? Because I would be someone who starts to doubt myself, like, oh, these people don't believe in me, why do I believe in me? So like it's kind of there's like a certain beauty in being delusional because that stuff probably doesn't affect you as much when people don't see what you see.
Yeah. They either don't understand what it is that you're thinking about creating, whether it's a physical product, maybe it's an app or a service or whatever it is, because they don't see that creative side. They don't see what's going on in your head. They really can't understand or grasp what's going on inside your head, and until they actually physically see the thing or whatever it was, and they're like, now I get why you spent X amount of times, X amount of time creating this thing, and that's what people thought. Like some of the greatest creators in the world, whether it was like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, like they all thought they were crazy. They're like, what are you doing? What's this going to do to society, And
now they're like people that are studied and like this is how he made it happen, and like we take their strategies and we try to replicate what they've done, and it's just crazy to think that like it just I don't know, it's just kind of wild to think about that. But I think the other thing about delusion is it actually makes you a little bit I think you're more confident. I think delusion and confidence are like kind of coincide. Like and it's actually proven that like this type of delusion, not obviously when it's like the good type of delusion, people with such like delusions tend to be like happier,
How so?
So I think that people with that are kind of have like positive like illusions about themselves, they, you know, you're just feeling more positive about yourself and about the world around you. I think it comes down to like, for instance, like others may see like a cruel world, or others may see a bad day, and you just see when you see like when you're that other person where you're like optimistic and you're kind of like a little bit delusional in the sense that like everything's pointing to like, oh, this should be a bad day because X, Y, and Z happened, but you're not. You just feel better about yourself. You know, you're not like, I feel like you can't be brought down as much, you know?
Yeah, because because you're like actually like you said, like because you're happier.
Yeah.
Because you know what it is that you want out of whatever, you know, if it's an idea or whatever it is that you're creating, you know what you want. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I also just think you worry less about what other people have to say because it's almost as if you're not in the same world.
Yeah.
It's like this is a very bad example, but it's the first thing that came to mind when I said, "Oh, you're not in the same world." Is when Michael Scott is wondering if his girlfriend's cheating on him, and she's like, Michael, don't let your imagination run amok. He was like, what's amok? She's like, don't let your imagination go crazy. And he was like, why did you just say that? And she was like, Michael, don't let your imagination go crazy. He was like, what do you mean? I live in a fantasy land. And I'm like, this is like the perfect like kind of metaphor because I think that's how other people see people who are like delusional, is like they live in this fantasy land. It's like, no, they just live in a world where things could be better and they can be better, you know? So it's not all delusion. It's that like they're working towards a world that is and it will be. Just because it's not yet doesn't make them delusional.
That's funny, that Michael Scott reference.
Yeah, I was like, I live in a fantasy land.
Yeah.
It's funny because I feel like a lot of times in my life, like I relate to that so much because I feel like a lot of people have seen that in me of like, you just don't live, or like the classic quote where like, oh, like welcome to the real world. Like when you become an adult and like your parents are like, well, that's the real world for you. Like you've been living in this like version of the world that's not real. Like they make it seem like as if your whole life you're not in the real world when you still are. You might not be like doing like adult things like paying for bills and stuff, but from like the moment you're born you're in the real world. But it's a classic line. I've heard it from my parents so many times. I probably can even pull up a text like from my dad like that said it to me recently, and it was like, welcome to the real world. And it's like, so what was I living in? Like where was I before? So like I just think it's so funny because people like will say that and it's like, okay, so there is something else. There's a real world and then there's this place that you're in when you're not in the real world. But there's also this Modern Family quote, you know, I've been watching a lot of Modern Family lately, and I think it kind of like sums up like how I feel about this all too is like, it says, there are dreamers and there are realists in the world. You'd think that the dreamers would find the dreamers and the realists would find the realists, but more often than not, the opposite is true. See, the dreamers need the realists to keep them from soaring too close to the sun, and the realists, well, without the dreamers, they might not ever get off the ground.
Wow. And
I think that's like, this episode is on a specific episode in Modern Family where Cam is like talking about this thing called the pumpkin chunkin or something like that, where you like chuck this like pumpkin all the way across a football field, and like there's like, I think it's what's her name? It's Cam. Damn, do you know the wife's name? Phil's wife's name in Modern Family? Cam. Alec. No. So it's Mitch, Alex, and like Phil's wife. I don't know why I'm not able
blanking on her
to
name too.
Blanking her name. I was just watching the show, and they're like the realists, and then the dreamers are like Phil, Luke, Cam, I think Haley, and they're all saying like, no, it can't go across the football field. Like that's impossible to do, and the other like group is like, no, it is possible because like, you know, they just have this like, you know, kind of belief that like you can make it happen.
Yeah.
And I just think it's true though. I think you often find yourself like surrounded by like the opposite of you, and it kind of inspires you to, think differently.
Inspires you to look at things obviously in a different way.
Cesar's saying the same thing
No,
I just
no.
said.
I mean, like, obviously look at things in a different way, but also in a way, it's funny because when you said think different, I thought of Apple, think different.
Oh, damn, yeah.
That was their motto for a long time. I think they changed it or removed it. Either way, yeah, I mean, people that think different in a way that helps innovation, occur, whether in all kinds of different industries.
Yeah.
From, more recently, like automotive, a lot of people thought, oh, it's electric cars aren't really going to work. There's no way to make it efficient enough, cheap enough. Like the batteries are going to people aren't going to use them for long range trips, which people still do nowadays. But some people still don't trust them. Like you, by the way, you don't trust electric cars for long range.
It's not that I don't trust electric cars. It's that I am the lover. I swear I love this oath before I say this. I'm the lover of road trips and having to stop that. Say you have to charge your electric car for an hour, so you can't just fill up.
You don't.
It's 30 minutes.
20.
Okay, it's still 15 minutes
Think
longer than I'm at a gas station.
Think about this.
This is not about electric cars, so we're not going to go into this.
Yeah.
But it's 15 minutes longer than you're at a gas station. So I don't think, I think electric cars are a great innovation. And here's the thing about this. I will say, the people who doubted electric cars are aiding them to make electric cars better because then they're answering those pain points.
Range
takes too long to charge. What can we do?
Yeah.
Doesn't go far enough. What can we do? It the people who doubt you will give you all the ways to further improve what your vision is.
Exactly.
So I think that there's a benefit to having those people who just don't see it the way you do because you can get different perspectives are so valuable. So I will say they're good, but it doesn't mean you have to listen to if they tell you it's impossible, it doesn't mean it's impossible.
Exactly.
There's those stories, for instance, where people who are told they're infertile and then they have baby.
Yeah, the baby. Yeah.
Yeah, they have a baby and it's all science proved to not make that happen.
Yeah.
Or those stories where people should have died, but they didn't. So
there's a whole show called I Shouldn't Be Alive. I remember watching that as a kid.
Is there?
Yeah, it used to be on Discovery. It was them surviving the worst case scenarios in your life, being stuck on a remote location because your plane crashed and you had a certain amount of water and stuff like that, and rescuers took days to find you and you survived living off the land, and it's crazy. Great show.
I was also reading something earlier, which is this is wild, but I 100% believe it. Was that people who are delusional perform better in the workplace. And they actually work better, collaboratively with people. Yeah. And I think, I often think about, the work, my job, because one of the things that I love about my job currently is that I'm inspired by a lot of people that I work with. And I think that pushes me to, know that I'm capable of so much more because I'm watching other things being executed by people in my team and well, if they can do it, I can do it too. And or they believe in me clearly, so I need to believe in myself too. So I think that it's just it's just it makes sense though that people who are a little bit delusional would work better in a, and I'm not saying completely delusional, but a little bit of delusion can't hurt you, It's not bad to believe in the magic of it all, that something, good things will always come. There's that quote, good things come to those who wait,
Yeah.
It's not bad to be that person, I think a lot of people see it as overly optimistic. And I think, what's crazy is overly optimistic people tend to piss people off.
That's true.
it's why does someone else's happiness make you mad? Let them live. I will say though, I can see it because I know Cesar, whenever I've gotten mad about something and he's not angry about it, I'm why are you not angry about this? How does this not anger you?
What's the point of being angry? There's just so much more that you can do with your time and in your life than just being angry.
Saying that as I got angry at him this week, I was fuming, and here he is. What's the point of being angry?
Yeah, I mean it's literally just.
I will argue you need to feel
you know what it is? It's okay to be angry. It's just the question is whether you stay angry is the other thing.
We literally had a podcast about it's okay to be angry. Yeah, staying angry is a different thing. Like if I woke up the next morning and I still was pissed at you, that would have been a problem. But I wasn't. I was just angry for the moment, and then, sometimes you just gotta let your emotions flow. It's kind of like using the restroom.
Yeah, you gotta let it flow.
You just gotta let it flow and like let it pass. And then if it doesn't pass, maybe you should speak to someone. I think something else that plays into this whole conversation about delusion and like there being like a good side to delusion is self-awareness. And I think self-awareness is key in a lot of different areas and like topics. But specifically delusion, like you have to have balance and kind of be able to like truly pull yourself out of something that might be completely like delusional. Like if I told myself right now that I wanted to, what's something crazy?
Win the lottery.
I don't think that's delusional.
I mean, that is because the chances of winning the lottery, you have a higher chance of getting struck by lightning.
Okay. That's like delusional, but like...
It's possible, but not delusional.
So delusional would be like spending every single paycheck, all of my paycheck on lottery tickets. Like that's bad delusion because one, I'd be wasting all my money. I wouldn't have money for like a roof over my head and my essentials. Like the other side of that is like I could be like, oh, I'm only gonna spend $20 a month on like a lottery ticket because for the hell of it. That'd be okay because like you could win. It's not out of the realm of possibility. The chances are never zero. But if I were to go and blow everything I had, that'd be a little bit delusional because in the end you could leave with absolutely nothing.
Or like going to Vegas and saying, oh, I'm going to win like a bunch of money.
So you have to have that self-awareness. Like if I told myself I'm going to Vegas, I'm going to play Texas Hold'em, I'm going to win all this money. That would be a little bit delusional considering the only time I've played Texas Hold'em is with my family. And I've won a couple, but I still don't really know all of the rules.
Exactly.
So I think a lot of the winning was just luck. So that'd be delusional to think that like I could do something like that unless I pair it with something like, I'm going to train for this. I'm going to hire a coach to teach me how to get really good at this. So there's like a crucial role in knowing like, here's the thing where it gets complicated, is like, I think being delusional can like help you unleash your potential. So like there might be a version of yourself that doesn't think you're capable of something, but being a little bit delusional might actually help you realize that you are. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you have to have like a self-awareness to be like, understand yourself enough to know like the impact, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. To understand that what you're doing and whether it's like wanting to win a bunch of money gambling, like you need to understand that the hypotheticals and the percentages of you actually winning,
Well, and you just also need to understand yourself though. You need to be self-aware of like
how good are you at actually gambling at 21 or poker or whatever it is, right? Do you have a poker face? Probably not, So,
Poker face is key, man. I've always been scared too, like off topic. I've always been scared to like actually play at one of the tables in Vegas. I've only ever done slots because I like super anxious.
or 21 or
any of them. I've never played at a table in Vegas. I've only ever played slots.
Well, I mean, blackjack you're playing against the house, but yeah.
It just scares me. I'm just like, I don't want to talk to other people. I also have that thing where like, so I saw this on social media recently too, where like you're in a room full of people and all of a sudden you feel like people are like judging you and they're probably not. I get that feeling like all the time, especially if I'm out in public and I'm just like by myself. I'm like, people are looking at me. And I probably feel that way because I people watch a lot and like, well, if I people watch, people are probably people watching me,
Yeah.
So... Yeah, but I think too, so there's something that got brought up in like this conversation too, like when I was reading about delusion and like the potential like positive impact of delusion is like in scenarios where like it really is life or death, survival of the fittest, like you've got to survive. I think you need to be a little bit delusional. Like say if you were stuck on an island, the only thing that's going to get you out of that is sheer delusion of like, it's going to be okay. We're going to make it work. Like, even when all odds are pointing to it not working. or not like getting saved.
Yeah, no, it's you're obviously going to try everything you can to get off that island or whatever it is, right? And whether it's finding help and everything, if you don't have a phone or whatever it is, right? You're going to try everything that you can, or else you die.
Yeah.
You know, if you're
It's
not
like
delusional,
it's either delusion or die.
or die. Yeah, it's literally it. Yeah, that's sad, but that's so true.
Yeah. So I think that in those situations, it's like being optimistic about the outcome, even if it doesn't seem like the outcome will be optimistic, is probably what saves you in those scenarios. And I've heard so many stories too of like just people having that, like, I don't even know what to call it. Not even just delusion, but like the strength and the resilience to continue going despite like how bad things were. I mean, you hear those stories all the time where like someone perseveres despite everything that was working against them, or how many times they should have like died, or and it kind of makes you I would imagine in that like type of scenario, it makes you feel like you're here for a greater purpose.
Yeah. Dang. Delusional, man. You gotta be a little delusional to
it's
make it
funny
in
because
life.
Cesar and I we were thinking about what we should talk about on the podcast this week. We were at a Mexican restaurant drinking some margs, and I was like, what should we talk about on the podcast? It's our 50th episode, and like I want it to be just a really good conversation. And I brought up like obviously delusion and like kind of some examples of what I was thinking, because I think oftentimes in our life, people just see what others want as delusional, and it doesn't have to be, it's not, it's because of like, it's all about like, like I said earlier, it's all about perspective. If you, for instance, if I'm someone that is constantly only seeing barriers and reasons why things can't happen, of course, I honestly think I might not achieve as much because I can't see the other side of those barriers of like, well, what happens if you get past them? What happens what happens if you actually went for it? I can only see like the things stopping me from going after what I want. So I think that happens a lot, is like people will see, I don't know, people might even see us and be like, this podcast, they're so stupid if they think that like this will go anywhere. But I just see like potential, there's potential for things to go right. There's always something we can do better. There's always a way we can be better. We can always, continue to grow.
Exactly. And there's always, this whole podcast titled Growing Together.
Yeah,
and, we're always looking for ways to improve. I'm always suggesting things. You're always suggesting things. I think episode 50, 51, maybe we start a new season. I don't know. There's a lot that can go on, and that goes on into the creation of this podcast. So, yeah.
It's crazy. It's honestly crazy. But yeah, we were sitting there talking, and I was just explaining. I was like, I think people really at some points in our lives have seen us as just delusional and like, or disconnected from like what actually is reality. But the truth, like, I think the truth of the matter is that we were living in reality, but a different one, because we see the world differently. It's the same way that different generations like see the world and where it's going differently. Like, I might think it's going great. Other people might think it's just headed for the shithole, like, but yeah, so it's really all about perspective and like, yeah. And I think that something that like just kind of inspires me about like kind of being a little bit delusional is that the idea that there's so much potential out there, and like if you can truly just put yourself in a place where you believe that you can achieve anything you want, you do put yourself in a far better place than if you're telling yourself that there is limits and there's things that you can't achieve. Like,
you're limiting yourself.
Yeah, it's all about how you talk to yourself at the end of the day too. And like what you may see as delusional, or what others may see as delusional, might just be your Monday. Might just be like your life.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say about delusion, Cesar?
Being a little delusional is actually a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, stay delusional, my friends.
Stay delusional. If that's going to be the first merch lineup we have. Stay delusional.
Have a shirt. It says stay delusional. The quotes.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, if you're someone who's creative, I think being a little delusional, like Sonny said, is a good thing. You know, it keeps you on your toes, helps you figure out where you can grow in your creative journey, whether you're just, I don't know, you're an artist, you're an innovator, you're a thinker, you're someone who's just wanting to create something cool, or using all these really cool AI tools that are available nowadays. And just, there's so much that you can do now. It's insane to think that, you know, a couple of years from now, like what we have now in regards to technology, it's going to shift. Like these podcasts, for all we know, maybe one day we'll just type something in and it's boom, Cesar and Sonny just making a podcast.
That would put all the fun out of it.
Yeah, that would.
That would make it very not us.
That's me being delusional right there.
Yeah, that's dumb delusional.
But yeah.
Anyway, this has been this week's episode. We're so glad you're here. Please, if you made it to the end of the episode, like this video on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube. If you're listening on any podcast platform, please leave a review or tell us what you want to hear. Tell us what you hate about it. Like, give us all the feedback at this point. And yeah, I think, you know, we're only going to go up from here. It's episode 50. And yeah, the future's
bright.
Future's full of delusion. It's bright, and we're excited to be here. So that has been Growing Together with me, Sonny Vasquez.
And me, Cesar Santos.
We hope to see you again next week.
See you guys later.